If you're not new to this channel, then you know I talk all about multiplying the assets that you own because I believe it's assets that are going to set you free. Financially free, that is. So if you acquire more assets, then the closer you will be to being free, and that might mean retire for some of you guys, but that also might just mean that you get to do what you do for work as an option. You don't have to, and that's a beautiful thing. It's like you don't need to be there. You're there because you want to be there. And your life is completely different when you experience it that way. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of different assets that I just acquired. Well, I actually kind of created, right? But I just acquired that is kind of like real estate, but it is not. So let's go into it. Hey guys, I'm Hoan. Welcome to the Hoan Zone, where we multiply the assets you own. And let's talk about these assets that I was talking about. Well, before we get into that, let's talk about an asset by the definition-wise by what Robert Kiyosaki says from Rich Dad Poor Dad. So he says an asset is something that puts money into your pocket, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So recently, I just created two more assets, and they are not real estate purchases. Usually I am buying real estate properties where I buy the properties, rehab them, and then I rent them out. And when I rent them out, the renters pay me money to live at the property. So the asset here is the real estate, and it's providing me cash flow. It's putting money in my pocket. Today, I'm going to be talking about notes. These are something a little different, but I want to break it down on the board so that you guys can see what they are, so that you can see how you can make them work for your life. All right, back to the trusty board. So here's my board, and let's talk about these assets. So usually, I will buy a property, right? And then the tenant is going to pay me rent. And that is pretty simple. Everybody understands that as an asset class. But this time, instead of actually buying the real estate, what I did was I lent money to the person who wants to be the investor. So let's look at how that looks. Okay. So now this person here is no longer me. Let's call this person Bob. It's always Bob, isn't it? Because it's a short name. So Bob. So Bob is the investor here. And Bob wants to buy this property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lend, and I'll change my color here. So this is me, right? This is me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lend Bob the money to buy the property, okay? So Bob got a loan from me to buy the property. Okay, so I'll write here, this is a loan. So Bob now owns the property, and they are collecting rent from the property. What Bob needs to do, though, is Bob needs to pay me my interest. Right? So that's the cool part. So Bob owns the property. What I have is the note. So between Bob and I, so let's draw over here. So here's Bob, and then here is me, right? Between Bob and I, there is something called a note. It's technically a promissory note. But in the note, it will say the details of the deal, right? So here I lend Bob $100,000, and maybe I'm going to lend it to Bob for 12% interest, and I'm going to lend it to Bob for 3 points. So let's look at what this note looks like. So I am lending Bob $100,000, and then Bob is going to turn around and buy this property. So then Bob then rents out the property and then pays me back. So here, a $100,000 note, at 12% means that Bob needs to pay me $1,000 per month. It's like, Hoan, how did you do that? How did you figure out that math so quick? Well, 12% just means 1% per month because there are 12 months in a year. So a $100,000 loan at 12%, if you take 1% of that, that's $1,000. That's per month. So Bob owes me $1,000 per month on this loan. And then in addition to that, if you notice right here, I am charging 3 points. 3 points is like 3%. Each point is a percentage, and that is a fee for lending the money. So Bob is going to give me $3,000, right? He's going to give me $3,000 up front as a fee because the loan is 3 points. I gave Bob $100,000, or maybe I gave Bob $97,000, but he still owes me 100. I give Bob 97, he owes me 100, or I give him 100 and he gives me back 3. Either way, that's how it breaks down. And then every single month, right? And let me go here. Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of this. Okay. So then every single month, in addition to the $3,000, he is giving me $1,000 per month. So that $3,000, that was one time, and then the $1,000 a month for as long as he has the loan. And in this case, I structured it where it's going to be a 12-month loan, so they can refinance before that and pay me off early, but they have up to 12 months to pay me the $1,000. So here I've structured a loan which is producing cash flow, right? This $1,000, this is the cash flow, and that cash flow is what makes this an asset for me. So now why would I do this versus buying the house? And then why would Bob borrow the money to do this and all of those things? So let's get into that real quick. So why would I do this? Well, I want the cash flow, right? So let's write down cash flow here. So cash flow, but then also, here's the most important part, no work. If the toilet leaks, if the roof leaks, if something breaks, that is on Bob to fix because Bob is the homeowner here, or the property owner, right? Bob owns the property. It's Bob's responsibility to fix it, not my responsibility. My responsibility is already done. Bob, I give you $100,000. You said you'd pay me back, and you said you'd pay me back in $1,000 per month, right? As per our agreement stated here in the note. And so come on, give me the money. Now, the other thing is that I'm going to have a collateral, collateral, right? I'm going to have a collateral position where if I'm lending $100,000, then the property is probably going to be worth something like $165,000 or something like that. There's going to be a significant amount of equity in the property that keeps me safe. So if Bob chooses not to pay me back, then I have the right to take the property back. So I have that collateral that's worth $165,000. And I've only lent $100,000 on that property. So if I take it back, then I'm up $65,000. And even if I have, say, foreclosure costs and court fees and attorney fees and all that kind of stuff, let's say I throw $15,000 at it, I still have a $50,000 equity position in the property. So that's kind of like, it's a safety net. The last thing I want to do is take Bob's property back. Like, I lent it to Bob because I felt like Bob was a good bet and that Bob's going to pay me back. I don't want to take the collateral back, right? This is not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the cash flow, not for the collateral. But worst case scenario, I got to take the collateral back. So be it. So be it, right? Now, why in the world would Bob take this deal? Well, Bob got $100,000 from me. That's it, right? Bob got $100,000 from me. Bob was able to use other people's money, which I always talk about, right? Bob used other people's money. This time it was my money. And then Bob went out and bought a property that produces cash flow, produce rent. Let's say the rent was $1,500. Bob keeps the $500 and pays me my $1,000. So you guys see how that works? Now, that 12% interest rate, that is a terrible interest rate for long term. So what's Bob going to do? Bob is going to go refinance the property. So if the property is worth, let's say the value came back at $150,000, even at 75% loan to value, that loan is $105,000. That $105,000 is enough to pay me back. And so through a refinance, Bob will pay me off and then get a loan for like 4% interest or 5% interest or whatever it is and be in a long-term loan, not this short-term 12% interest stuff here. And so Bob used the money to buy the property. Bob most likely bought it at a discount. That's why Bob only needed $100,000. Bought the property at a discount, and now the property is worth $150,000, $160,000, $170,000, whatever it is, right? So Bob is in a good position, used other people's money to buy the asset, and then when Bob refinances, pays me off, and then everybody's happy. And I got my $3,000 up front, right? That $3,000 up front in points, and then I got my $1,000 a month for however long Bob borrowed the money for. This is how the world works. And you guys, that could be you. You could lend the money. If you are watching this and you're like, Hoan, I have a bunch of money and I always wanted to diversify what I'm invested in, this is an opportunity for you to diversify how you grow your money. You can have your money in stocks. You can have your money in the actual real estate itself, right? But you can also lend money to other people. Maybe you don't have a deal. Maybe you don't have a deal, but the person you know does have a deal. And they're like, hey, I need some money. You got money. I got the deal. How about you lend me the money? Voila, right? So it keeps it nice and clean as well because you guys are not partners. You guys are not partners. Bob is the full owner. You are just the lender. You are the bank in this case, and you're going to have a lien against the property. So that's that, right? That's the beauty. this symbiotic relationship. And I did this twice recently. In the last, what was it, on Wednesday? Today is Saturday or something. Now you're watching this either on Monday or Wednesday, because here on the Hoan Zone, if you guys subscribe, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you guys subscribe, I release new videos every Monday and Wednesday. Today is Saturday when I'm recording this. But on Wednesday, I just did this twice. So I did two loans to different Bobs, right? Bob's bought two investment properties, and I'm just going to be the lender, and I'm going to collect my fee over time. And then at some point, I'm going to help them refinance, because I also do refinance loans for people. So I'm going to refinance them, and then they're going to pay me off, and we're all good. We're all good. I helped a couple of people multiply the assets that they own, and then I had an asset for a short time collecting cash flow. And most importantly, I didn't have to do any work. I just needed to make my money work for me. And so this was the route that I chose. If any of that confused you, just go back and rewatch the video. It's awesome. So I was acting as banker, and then Bob was acting as the investor. Bob used other people's money. I was the other person. Bob bought the property. I got me a note. We both got an asset technically, so we both multiplied. And that is what can happen to you. So again, make sure you subscribe and then hit that bell icon so you are notified when the videos are released. Make sure you hit that like button, of course, because why not, right? Only jerks don't hit that like button. So if you're not a jerk, then hit that like button. All right. And in the comments below, did I teach you something today? Did you guys actually learn something? Let me know. Did you learn? Is this something new? Because a lot of people talk about buying the real estate, but they never talk about the notes behind it. And the note business is a very, very cool business to be in, right? You got money working for you, and you don't have to do any work. That's passive income right there, right? That's extreme passive income. One of my mentors calls it that. Extreme passive income, when you're lending money. And if you have a bunch of money and you're an accredited investor, look up the definition of accredited investor. Well, I'll tell you real quick. If you make $200,000 per year if you're single, $300,000 a year if you're married, and you don't foresee that changing, or if you have $1 million in assets or net worth without including your primary residence, so if you have a net worth of over $1 million, then you are an accredited investor. And if you are an accredited investor and you have a bunch of money just sitting around burning a hole in your pocket, and you would like that money to work for you, email me, hoan@hoanzone.com. I have a couple opportunities coming up that you guys might be interested, but again, only if you are an accredited investor. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. I'm Hoan Tide. Let's multiply.